welcome to Inspired to Game. I'm Sean. We need to talk. Please, sit down. There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to come right out with it. The word meeple is trademarked.
What?
I know, it's a shock. It came as a shock to all of us, really. We learned of this recently when Cogito Ergo Meeple, now Cotswold Games, received a cease and desist letter from Hans Im Gluck, forcing them to change their upcoming game Meeple Inc. to now be called Tabletop Inc., and they also changed some of the artwork in the game so it doesn't use the trademarked meeple shape. Now all those trademarks are held in the UK, Europe, and Germany by Hans Im Gluck, makers of Carcassonne. Now the word meeple has been around since 2000. It can be traced back through Usenet archives on the internet, so we know exactly when it was coined. Unfortunately, as common as a word can be, does not preclude it from being used as a trademark. Now my understanding is that a trademark is a way for a company to protect its brand identity. It only applies in certain contexts. This is why you can go and buy an apple at a fruit stand, but also weirdly it's why Apple Corps Limited sued Apple Computers over a microphone. So now the details and the context which apply to Hans Im Gluck's trademark of the word meeple can be found online. I'm not going to go into details, but I did find some interesting things while I was looking them up. Did you know that there's a flags in Melbourne that has the word meeple trademarked for all of Australia? There was also a recent application in the US, which has since been abandoned, to trademark the word meeple as it pertained to t-shirts and fidget spinners and dice cups and pretty much anything that you would usually see somebody printing a corporate logo onto. So it's this kind of suspicious trademarking that seems to only exist for the purpose of making money as you license its use out to people that want to slap it onto a t-shirt, that has prompted a couple of people to put in an application in the US to trademark the word meeple as it pertains to various types of games. Now they say they have done this to preemptively trademark the word meeple in the US so that somebody else couldn't come along and trademark it and then turn around and do what Hans Im Gluck has done in the UK. Now they've already said they're not going to charge money for people to use the word meeple in their games. They're just looking for credit and candy. To be honest, the word credit in there makes me a little nervous. This is all in response to what's happening over in the UK and Cotswold Games having to change their name and the name of one of their games. And to claim in one hand that you're protecting the word in the US and on the other hand saying that you want credit doesn't seem to mesh for me. Now I'm sure that in the coming weeks they may come up with their own explanation because this is becoming a bigger and bigger issue as time goes on. We'll have to wait and see. All that aside, something interesting that I found in researching this, because I wanted to know when exactly did meeple become intrinsically associated with Carcassonne. It wasn't in any of their manuals all the way up until 2014, judging from the manual that was in the big box that Z-Man Games was putting out at the time. So I pulled out our 20th anniversary edition of Carcassonne, which we bought a couple years ago, and sure enough, meeple is used in that rulebook. Digging a little bit further, I found that it first appeared in the Carcassonne big box rulebooks in about 2017, which I believe is when they first made their trademark filing. Now here's something I find even more interesting. In the 20th anniversary rulebook, they correctly claim that meeple is a combination of the words my and people, as it was when it was first coined back in 2000. But they also claim that the word meeple is both singular and plural. I don't agree with that at all. Now I know it seems silly to focus on that amidst all this other controversy, but it kind of comes from the same place. Hans Im Gluck invented Carcassonne. Yes, they have the meeple shape, the thing that we have come to call a meeple, but they didn't use the word for the first 17 years that Carcassonne was in print. Now they want to claim it as part of their brand identity, at least for that game, and they want to then tell us how to use that word. I don't agree with that. Now I recently found a video on Man vs. Meeple where they go into the history of the word meeple. They even have an interview with Alison Hansel about how she coined the phrase while playing Carcassonne. It's a great video. I'll have a link to it in the description down below. Now in that video, they talk about how meeple is both singular and plural, based on the fact that meeple is a portmanteau of the words my and people, and since people refers to a plural, then meeple must also be plural. Now, I don't agree with that logic completely, and I'll tell you why. If we were talking about people, we have a group of people here. If I take one element out of that group, it's a person. One person joins a group of people. So to follow that logic, if I had a group of meeple and remove one element, that would be a merson. But that's not a fun word at all. Now let's take the playing pieces themselves. They usually represent workers. Now, is that an individual worker? I tend to think of them more as a group of workers. So if this is a group of workers, it is a group of people. Now this one over here is a different group of workers, a different group of people. When you have diverse groups of people in the same area, you can refer to them as peoples. Peoples of Earth, peoples of the United States, peoples of Europe. And that is where my logic tells me that meeples is the correct plural of meeple. I can have one meeple, I can have two meeples. But ultimately, I use the word meeples as a plural because that's what everybody else seems to do. Meeple is a word that was defined by a member of the board game community. It is propagated because of members of the board game community. The word itself belongs to us all within the board game community. We get to define for ourselves whether it's plural, whether it's singular, and how we use it. So this is just my opinion on the word. I pull a single meeple out of a bag of meeples. You may pull a meeple out of a bag of meeple. But I would still be interested in hearing what you think. Comment down below. Is meeple the plural form of meeple? If you've made it all the way to the end with me, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. I also want to give a shout out to Cotswold Games. This all started because of something that they've had to deal with, and I can't imagine the amount of stress they've been under. If you want to show them a little bit of love, I'll have links in the description down below so you can check out some of their games such as Solar 175, Luddite, and of course Tabletop Inc. Well, that's enough out of me. Go grab yourself a fistful of meeples and happy gaming, folks. Hi, welcome to... Now my understanding, and I figure this whole time I've been looking there instead of at the camera. But it is also interesting to... This is not something I can spew off the top of my head. That's a horrible way to put that. Now that kind of application... No, that's bad. Okay. I looked at our 20th anniversary. What interests me even more... No. Yeah. And I'm going to change all of this right now. I also don't accept... Meeple is the plural for... I cannot say that word. Okay. On house... Stay in school, kids.